The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
And welcome to the Writer's Block Podcast. I'm Mandra Bisgrenay, and I believe everyone has a story to tell. What's yours?
I'm Deborah Monk, empowering you to find your creative voice.
And we don't have Shelly with us today, but we figured since she's coming close to finishing her book, and her editor reminded her that it is time to write that author bio, we thought that today, without her here, would be a great time to critique her first draft.
Right.
Nothing like talking about someone behind their back.
That's
Very much
what
behind
we
their back.
thought.
On a show that they listen to every week.
Hi,
Yes.
Shelly.
Hi, Shelly. We miss you.
But to be fair, she did give us permission
Clearly.
to do this. So we're going to talk a little bit about what an author bio should include, and then we're going to read, Shelly sort of has two versions.
Right.
So we can read those and give everyone our thoughts on them.
I guess.
Okay. So what do you need to include in an author bio? You want to have an opening byline. You want to kind of talk about your work or the theme of your work. You want to include some relevant credentials. So by relevant, the fact that you might have been captain of your high school track team doesn't necessarily need to go in there because
Unless you're writing a book on track.
running, right.
Otherwise, nobody cares.
Leave it out. Because it's not an autobiography. It's a synopsis,
Right.
you know, of your work.
Even if you're writing an autobiography, you mean the author bio is not an autobiography.
Right.
Right.
And then you want to include some personal touch, you know, so maybe something about your family, where you live, that you're into, I don't know, skiing, or that you have a couple of dogs, something like that. That kind of helps the reader connect with you.
Right.
Because that's really what it's all about. The bio is your introduction to the reader. You want to keep it under 300 words, so it's not lengthy. And you want to make sure you have like a professional photo shot or headshot also on the book. Okay.
Why don't you just tell the studio audience what you want, because the people
Could you
watching
bring
on
me that
YouTube are
mermaid?
horrified right now.
No, the mermaid bag. Right on top.
I've completely
Yes, thank
lost
you.
control of
I'm
my
so
co-host.
Sorry, Mandra.
At first, I thought she was having a stroke. Her eye was twitching.
Can I have that? Nope. That.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's all right. We're
Thank
going to
you.
just move
Keep
on
going.
to
Yes.
Shelly's two
you.
versions. I think Shelly really has one that's more traditional, longer, and then she did one that's more humorous, shorter version. So are we going to read both?
I think you should.
Okay. Let me start with the longer one.
Okay.
Shelley Devlin got her hairdressing license at 18 and became a successful salon owner at 23. Enjoy the journey is only one of her favorite quotes. As the founder, educational director, and image enthusiast of Water's Edge Salon and Spa in New Hampshire, Shelley's mission is to have clients look and feel amazing after visiting. Her vision is for clients to feel warmth as soon as they walk through the door. Shelley's ambition came by the warm energy of her mom and by the hard work ethic of her dad. She started the salon in a small space of 300 square feet in 1990 at the young age of 23. The second location grew to 1,500 square feet in 1995. In 2000, she moved the salon to a 3,000 square foot location, and in 2010, she found the perfect house to be our home. In 2016, she handed the ownership title to longtime manager, business partner, and friend, Sherry McCall-Gayer. Shelly has been traveling the United States as a Team Quest platform artist for Aquillage, a hair care company, since 1999. She inspires others through her long hair designs as well as creative cutting. Her talent has been featured in multiple publications and magazines, including front covers of Canadian Hairdresser magazine, Modern Salon magazine, Hot magazine, as well as throughout the Aquillage company imagery. Her stage work is her forum to share technique and successful business ideas with other salon professions. Her mind never slows with the ideas for her clients, the beauty industry, and herself. If it's not broken, break it and make it better. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Love what you do, love who you do it with, and love who you do it for. The turning point was when she turned 50 and decided to write her book, claiming to change all the names to protect the guilty.
Well, and cue music
is she
because our
writing
showtime is
two-
over.
Is she writing two books?
Why?
Well, that one's one book.
Oh, maybe
Yeah.
it's so
And then
long.
where's the other one?
The other one's shorter. But let's talk about
Yeah.
this one for a second. There's a lot in there.
Right. It's
Way too long.
way too long.
And I think that's too, I like the beginning. I like her mission and sort of her vision.
But that's really, this is more designed for the spa.
Yes, I would agree. And not so much for the book. We also
Right.
don't need all the details on the business of
We don't.
the locations and the dates. It was
It
a lot
read
of
more
numbers.
like a resume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, for the business,
Right. Not for the writing.
not for the writing. And then I think there were too many quotes at the end. I think
Way
if you
too
sort
many
of have
quotes.
one tagline or one
And plus,
quote.
I don't think she needs quotes because this is supposed to be about her, not about what other people have said.
Right.
So I brought a couple of books here. So I'm going to, just as in comparison, this won't take long. Carry On Warrior, Glennon Doyle Melton. Hers is, Glennon Doyle Melton is founder of the online community at momastery.com, philanthropist and contributor to Family Circle, Women's Day, Glamour UK, Huffington Post, and other publications. She lives in Florida with her family. Done.
Right. So we have her opening, her credentials, and then a little something personal about her.
And even the opening is really one of her credentials because that website that she started, Momastery, was the beginning of everything for her.
Right.
So, and then she lives with her family in Florida. Now, I know Shelly and I have talked a little bit, and she said, well, I don't want to just do, I live with my husband in New Hampshire with my dogs.
Tough crap. That's what the rules are.
Well, but the other thing is these people have credentials for writing. So that's what they're putting on their thing.
Yes.
And Shelly, as a first-time author, doesn't really have that. So she needs
She
to
can
put
include
something.
some credentials for the hair, though, because that
book's
is the
about hair,
book.
yes.
So that's, I think, certainly okay.
Yeah, a one-liner. Shelly is a hairdresser. X number of years experience.
Right. I think
Ooh, she'll hate
on.
that.
the history of the salon,
Not needed.
this is not needed in this particular
Nope.
bio. I think the second one, why don't I read the second one?
Now, maybe she could put that into a forward, where if she felt like she needed a backstory before all the stories start, there could be a forward. But as part of the author bio,
It doesn't need
that's
to be
not
there.
going to fit on the front and the back of the
And
book.
Jonathan, that's a good point. A lot of that historical information
Is in the
comes
book.
through in her stories.
Right.
So you don't need to include it on the
Right.
back of the book because as they read the book, they'll get all of those changes.
You want to be relevant, but not repetitive on the project.
Right.
Right.
And the thing we should mention for writers is, you write your book and you think you're done and you're a writer. So when your editor or your publisher tells you it's time to do your author page, you think it's going to be a snap. But writing your book and then writing about yourself, even though Shelley's book is about herself, it's really, I remember when I was asked to do it, it's hard.
Yeah.
How do you narrow it down to a couple of sentences? So
Right.
this actually, once you get here, you think while you're writing a book, you're going to be so happy when you're at the end and they're starting to ask for these details because it means technically you've made it, but it's a lot of pressure.
It is. And it's a different style
It's
of
a
writing.
very different style.
And I think one of the things, obviously you have to write in the third person.
As if someone
I
else-
didn't mention that,
right.
but you write in the third person, you got to keep it tight. You got to keep that
Very
writing really
tight.
tight. All right. So her second one, Shelly Devlin is an artist at heart. Hairdresser extraordinaire for longer than some of you have been alive. Salon owner for over a quarter of a century. Her hair art has been published numerous times in Modern Salon, Hot Magazine, and Canadian Hairdresser, to name a few. She has held the Mrs. New Hampshire 1999 title for the Mrs. America pageant when she fit into a size 6 dress. Daughter to her biggest fans, mom and dad, mother of an extremely talented son, wife to an amazing husband she swears is from another planet. Shelly and her husband Josh live on the lake with their 4-legged fur babies. Enjoys the wind blowing through her hair on her Harley with the license plate. Ah.
I'm looking towards Jonathan. Want to hear his response first?
It's shorter. We're not quite there yet.
Right. I think things like, daughter to her biggest fans, mom and dad. Well, we all know who else could you be a daughter of?
Right.
So I would cut that.
Yeah.
Does she want to say, for me personally, anytime someone talks about their pets, I think, I always think, that's,
Douchey.
you either have nothing else interesting about you but your cat.
Which is not Shelly.
Exactly.
There's so many interesting
I
things
think-
about her.
I love the last line, enjoy the wind blowing through her hair on a Harley with a license plate. Ah.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a great end. I think is an artist at heart. So I wrote a sentence. I wrote two different sentences that I thought might work for her. They would have to be written better, but if she liked them. You know you're meant to be a writer when you invent words. Inspire, spelled INSPYRE, which is on her license plate and it's tattooed on her arm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that tells us a lot about her in one sentence.
Right.
Making the world beautiful, one client /friend at a time is what Shelly does.
Right.
I just thought, so instead of hair extraordinaire, artist at heart, put salon owner for a quarter of a century, put that into one sentence. I do think her hair art has been published in the modern. I
think that's good. I think those are credentials that are relevant
because she's talking about being a hairdresser,
right? And that is relevant for the book.
It shows that she has more experience than the average
hairdresser
around the corner. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that's good.
I do have to say she's done an incredible job of what most people struggle with. She does not struggle with the self-hype part. She's like
she
her
can
own,
market herself.
Yeah, she's her own hype person at that point. So my only concern is that this isn't the venue for the self-hyping. This is not the DJ Khaled screaming, go, go, go. It needs to be a little more subtle. Just about the author. That's it. Couple sentences.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it can be the rah, rah, rah in the couple of sentences, like quick and to the point, hit it home, hit it hard.
So I think it is a bit of a marketing piece to your book, because if they want to trust the author and feel like they relate to the author in order to pick up and read the book.
But you don't want it to be too detailed, because you're not necessarily marketing, or she shouldn't be marketing this book just to people who are into hair.
Right.
True.
Right.
It should be to all women, because all women get their hair done.
Or I think the inspiration piece is key to
everybody.
Right, to everybody, and to the stories that she's chosen to include. Yes. Do you think she needs to name the salon? Because in this version, she didn't name it at all. And I feel like that's a big part of what's in the book.
I personally don't, just because I don't want to give away the book, but we know the evolution of the salon throughout the book. So I wouldn't, but you certainly could.
I don't think anyone in California cares about a salon in Derry, New Hampshire, what the name is on the front of the book or the back of the book.
So we could leave it out and just keep in that she was a salon owner.
Right.
Okay. Do you have a couple other good ones?
No, they all basically were the same thing. They were the three that I brought.
Okay.
It is trickier though, because when you are picking up these on the back of the book and they're starting with all of their accomplishments in the writing field,
right?
And you're a first-time writer, then you don't have that ability. You don't have all that to put. So on the
you don't have those credentials, right?
Right.
Those associations.
On the back of my book, I just have, because this is on the back of the second book, but this was also on the back of the first book. Deborah Monk was born to be a writer, but took a detour of passion as a professional ballroom dancer. She never stopped her pen from dancing across the page, knowing in time she would return to her first dream. She is the host of the weekly podcast called The Writer's Block. She lives in New Hampshire with her husband and has raised a world-traveling daughter. Mm-hmm. So, at that, I don't have a long list of books yet. I'm getting there. I'm working on the third.
Right, but you bill yourself as an artist.
Right.
A creative person, so that all works.
And there was dancing in the first book. It was about a dancer. So I thought that by mentioning I was a dancer, it makes a book about a dancer a little bit more believable.
Right. Then you have the podcast work.
Yep.
And then you have your personal touch with,
just
where you
live
I live
and with who. Right.
And with
I
who.
almost didn't make the cut on the back of that.
Really? You almost got cut right out of that, Jonathan?
Well, anyway.
So I wanted to read, we're going to have a guest later on, Rick Peoples, and I read one of his bios last night, and I don't have the whole thing here with me, but the first couple of lines are pretty funny. And
I just got caught in a time travel conundrum.
No, Rick is coming in next week.
He's coming in sometime soon.
Because this is not a live show. This is pre-taped
last week.
for the future.
Oh, all right. Well, anyway.
We're time traveling
We
here.
had Rick
We've had him on, but we've had him on before. He's hosted before when Shelly hasn't been here, so this works out. Either way, I'm going to read it.
You go, girl.
Rick Peoples was born to the only poor family living in an affluent town on the North Shore of Boston, Massachusetts. He is an accomplished human resources professional and performance coach, and a less accomplished designer, actor, and internet-ordained minister. So there's more to it, but right away you get
it.
his humor and his wit.
Yes.
And I thought that was a brilliant way to write
Completely
his bio.
agree.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
And you want the readers to get to know you. You just have to understand the time and place. So, when I wrote the back of my book, I felt like, God, that's boring. But then on my website, I have my About Me page, which I wrote very differently. And I just had a few highlights, like my mantra. I'm a spiritual being having human experience. My favorite kind of interaction, win-win. What I hate the most, bullies. My favorite accessory, rose-colored glasses. My best strength, I never give up. My vulnerability, I am lonely a lot. 3 of my favorite things, books, music, and skin contact. My biggest fear, I'm not afraid of the deep end, I'm afraid of shallow living. And my wish is that we all find our tribe and feel connected.
Right.
So on my author page, on my website, I used my About Me page to get a lot more personal. And I feel like that's kind of what Shelly tried to do, is to put that in the About Me author page. And so I think she should keep a lot of that and just put it somewhere else.
Right. And I think if you get from this that she is an inspirational, like what that has to really come across, because that is Shelly, and that is the theme of
her book.
Yeah. So, Shelly, we hope we didn't beat you up too badly without you being here. I think this one is a good start, that shorter one.
And I think she was really hoping it would be rewritten for her by the end of the show. Sorry to disappoint
Well,
Shelly.
we got a couple lines there. A couple lines there for you, Shelly.
Clearly, we have some work to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for listening, and be sure to check out the Writer's Block NH Facebook and the Writer's Block podcast on your favorite podcast catcher. If you'd like to hear this episode again or share it with a friend, you can head on over to the UnitedPodcastNetwork.tv. That's UnitedPodcastNetwork.tv. Thank you again for listening, and we hope to inspire and empower you to tell your own story.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.